Hello everybody, Starno is saying here, and welcome to episode 27 of Facecam with Jen. And I would have done this Facecam yesterday, being February 18th, if it wasn't for the fact that I was pretty down with the cold. With a cold. Anyway, this one's a subject that is kind of a little bit more personal, a little bit more on the, most face cams are serious. Let's be honest, most face cams are serious matters. And just the degree of seriousness is a little bit on the higher scale. Because this one delves a little bit more into, well, how about I just go on it? So, on February 18th, 2001, that was the day of that year's running Daytona 500. I've been a fan of NASCAR for as long as I can remember. So I usually do watch the races, and I especially always want to go watch the Daytona 500. Which, by the way, is also this Sunday. The Budweiser duels are actually a little later tonight. I'll try to make sure I watch them. Well, and if not, I'm definitely not missing the 500. So, anyway, the Daytona, so that year, 2001 Daytona 500. That day, which to NASCAR fans is known as the day. That was the day Dale Earnhardt died in the final lap the final turn of the final lap of the Daytona 500, because it was turn 4, which is the final turn of the track. This type of thing really shook a lot of the fans. It shook anybody who had heard the name Dale Earnhardt. And I know yesterday on Twitter, and I follow a lot of NASCAR drivers, including Dale Jr., where there was kind of just remembering all about Dale Earnhardt. It's been 14 years since his death. And the wreck that killed him is in my brain because I watched that live. I may not remember what all happened, but I remember what I do remember, that I see Dale Earnhardt wrecking, and it's incredibly hard to see that wreck. But anybody who goes back on YouTube and watches it, and you can watch a lot of fatal accidents on YouTube. Kinda morbid. But you can look back and you can see that wreck wasn't that bad. Even earlier, that race, there was a worse wreck where Tony Stewart's car, which at the time would have been the Orange Home Depot 20, flipped over and stuff. But I remember watching this special called The Day, and I remember when they go to Richard Childress, the car owner of Dale's car, and he has this radio conversation not long after that wreck, and Dale says to Richard Childress, as if it were some sort of weird omen, that they need to make these cars safer or one day somebody's going to die. I'm pretty sure he didn't know he was going to be the one who did die. But it was definitely quite a bit of stuff. And the day gets referenced heavily in Michael Waltrip's book. Like, I think there's a couple, he talks about how he builds these relations with Dale Earnhardt. And Dale Earnhardt gives him the chance to win the 500. And I mean, and Michael Waltrip was the winner of the 2001 500, but of course, it was pretty bittersweet. Most people are going to remember the 2001 500 for Dale Earnhardt's death more than the fact that this was the first time Michael Waltrip ever won a race, and it's one of the two 500s he won. The other one being in 2003. Is it 3? Yeah, because Junior won 2004. And the thing is that the legacy that Dale Earnhardt left, 7 championships, about 80-something wins. So he's like 4th or 5th on the all-time. Because I know Jeff Gordon's passed him, but I don't... Yeah, he's 5th on the all-time list because you've got Richard Petty. Can't remember who is 2nd right now. Then Jeff Gordon, Darrell Waltrip, and then Senior. But February 18th is always kind of a little bittersweet because while it is the day of a good friend of mine's birthday, it's also the day. It's also the day. And every year I kind of like, yeah, I remember that because the day after that was actually President's Day. I think the 500 was usually President's Day weekend, but President's Day but it's kind of been pushed a little later in the month. But it was President's Day, which was kind of glad because I was going to be kind of sad because later on either that night or the following morning, I had found out that Dale Earnhardt passed, and man, I was a miserable person. I was miserable because I've been a NASCAR fan, like I said, NASCAR fan for as long as I can remember, and even I knew the name Dale Earnhardt, and I know he was a great competitor. He brought a lot to the sport. And there have been people since then who have brought stuff to the sport of NASCAR. And NASCAR continues to grow. And it hopefully will continue to grow. And this is something Dale would have probably wanted just to see NASCAR continue to grow. And I'm pretty sure he would also be pretty proud of Junior for what he has done. Or at least that's what a lot of people speculated knowing Dale. But February 18th is always going to be a little bit of this bitter day. Probably didn't help that I was sick, so I felt terrible anyway. But that was one of the first things that came to my mind when I woke up yesterday, was remembering this. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next episode.